the SEC stood up to Texas. And how did they do so? No horns down. No. Come on. Texas, did you think that would fly? Did you think somebody would make up a rule and no horns down? And that's when you do the horns down sign, as I did if you're on our video monitor. But it's when you put your forefinger and your pinky finger down, and it's insulting the Longhorns. But goodness gracious, it's just a sign. And they tried to get that banned in the SEC, the same conference that allows cowbells, artificial noise, in Starkville. What in the world was Texas thinking?
You were at SEC Media Days last week, Dave, like in Dallas. I was obviously covering it from the studio. But from what everybody was talking, and there were a lot of different people interviewing you that you were interviewing, and I got the vibe from all of them. And you tell me if this was a vibe. They are all basically saying Texas really tried to walk into the SEC like they like it was the Big 12 and they could strong arm their way to get what they want. Was that the vibe you got from Texas with the way they entered the SEC last week?
I was running around so much, and now that there are 16 teams, I can't tell you that I got that vibe, but I'll tell you this. Since then, I've definitely got that vibe, and based off what I've read of the coverage, and it just seems really, really silly to me for Texas to think that, and really pompous. And I've defended them previously on some of that stuff, but I'll also say the real UT. I'm sorry. I think if I'm correct, Caleb, correct me if I'm wrong, Tennessee became a state about, 80 years before Texas?
Not 80, because that would have been Tennessee became a state in 1796. Texas was definitely a state before the Civil War, but it was like 1850. Okay. It was during James K. Polk's years. So, yeah.
I just knew Caleb would know that. How he knew that, I don't know.
But the University of Tennessee is older than the state of Tennessee. A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, interesting. Tell me that. How can the University of Tennessee be older than the state of Tennessee?
The University of Tennessee started in 1794. It wasn't called Tennessee at the time, but yes, the University of Tennessee did start in 1794. It was it was part of a legislature of the Southwest Territory at Knoxville, which was part of the Carolinas at the time. Blount College, named for Governor William Blount, was established with the charter. It then became rechartered as East Tennessee College, and then East Tennessee University, and eventually the University of Tennessee. But yes, the University of Tennessee was a college beforehand. It became the University of Tennessee, like the flagship school during the Civil War, when Abraham Lincoln started the Land Grant Act for colleges across the country.
Bulldog Bark, who is obviously a Georgia fan, has entered our chat, and he said, just me personally, I hate Texas so much more than Tennessee. I didn't realize there was this much hate for Texas, but given what I have seen lately, I'm kind of on board with it. And
everybody's annoyed by their entitlement and the way they enter the SEC.
Bulldog Bark also says, think just because you were born in an oil field, you're owed respect. That is... There's a lot of truth to that. No Beverly Hillbillies around here. But, Caleb, were you surprised or just glad that – and let's give some background. So when they put out the SEC, the preseason all-SEC list, what did they do, Caleb? They put the name and then comma. Explain to everybody what they
would put the name and comma and then like the shortened version of a name. So like, for Alabama, it's UA. For Auburn, it's AU. It came down to Tennessee and Texas, both like to refer to themselves as UT. The SEC referred to Tennessee as UT. They referred to Texas as TEX, making it very clear that by SEC standards, it's UT for Tennessee.
Right, and it's Tex, which is pretty much it's one of those words you use when you don't know somebody's name. Like, hey, buddy, hey, chief, what's up, Tex? So I don't want to be called Tex.
The weird part about their level of arrogance is you would have thought them joining the SEC would have been a very humbling moment for them. The whole point of Texas with the Longhorn Network, when they tried to strong arm the Pac-12, remember they wanted to join the Pac-12 12 years ago? And then they strong armed the Big 12 with the Longhorn Network. Texas's whole point was, we can be independent. We don't need any of you guys. So if you want us in your conference, you better take the Longhorn Network. And then they got on their knees and begged the SEC to take them, following Texas A&M a decade ago. You would think they would enter a lot more humble at that point, right? But they come in and they say, we run the SEC. Steve Sarkisian last week, you missed his statement, said it on the show. He talked about how we needed security detail when we got off the airport in Dallas. Every team has security detail.
Okay. Okay. It's official. I don't like Texas. I've made the jump. My concern is, though, here's my concern. Is there a chance that the SEC likes Texas too much? And they had it in Dallas, for goodness sake. It's not like it was even Austin. In case you don't know Austin is like a top 15 market. Yeah, I think you should at least have it in an SEC city, even though I guess they haven't in Birmingham, Nashville, and Atlanta. But to have it
Nashville's an SEC city, technically.
Nashville, I'm sorry. Nashville is an SEC city. Sorry, I just left them all. But I just don't see Dallas being a good fit. I think a lot of people were frustrated by that. I think the space was great. It was, if you could pick that up and put it in Atlanta or Birmingham, I think you would do that. But you can't have it that far away. Why did you have it that far away? Well, let's ask that question for a second. Perhaps part of it is because of what they actually bring to the SEC, but I just, if they expect special treatment in the SEC, they need to get over that because it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and it was a good sign that the SEC said they wouldn't do a horns down penalty, a penalty for the horns down sign, because the Big 12 was doing it. By the way, Dave, if they were going to do a penalty, every team would have done the horns down sign and taken the penalty and just tried to run up the score on them anyway. But it was a good thing for the SEC to do that because there were concerns. Not only did they put it in Dallas, they gave Texas the easiest possible schedule out there this year, where they gave Oklahoma the hardest because every team had to play Texas or Oklahoma. And they went out of their way to give Texas an easy schedule. And look, I think part of that was Greg Sankey thinks it's better for the brand if Texas does well. And I was really going to, and I'm very critical of him doing that, but I think finally pressure came. I think Greg Sankey would have caved to Texas. I think pressure came from the groundswell of the SEC to say, you can't do this. You can't cave to Texas the way the Big 12 did. Texas has strong-armed every conference out of existence because of this. And I think finally Greg Sankey decided, you know what? Yes, we won't do a penalty for the horns down. I don't think he was going to, though. I've been very critical of Greg Sankey on this, and I thought he was going to give Texas whatever they wanted for a long time because he was giving them whatever they wanted for a minute.
Well, kudos to Greg Sankey there. I want to play a little game if we can. Does that work with you?
Let's go.
Because Tyler brought up a great point on the message board, and that is that I like Texas over Texas A&M, which is true, and I think Caleb does for now. So let me ask you this question. Who will be the better football team in 2024, Texas or Texas A&M?
Low key, I'm the only person saying this. Texas A&M. I'm the only person saying it.
That's crazy.
Come on. I thought we were going to have a fun game here in which we could go 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, and then eventually I would agree with you. So you think they'll be better this year. Caleb, as far as this little bit that I wanted to do.
You suck. Jackass.
Okay,
Wait, but here's the point. 2 to 3 years down the road, Texas, I think, would be better. Because the problem with Texas A&M...
Wait. Okay, let me get there because now I'm confused. All right, Texas or Texas A&M. Texas A&M will be better than Texas in 3 years from now.
No, Texas will be better.
That's crazy.
Here's why.
No, you know why?
Why?
It's once I can put it in one word. I don't even have to make an argument. By the way, please hit that like button and subscribe. Please hit the like button. We appreciate that. Coach, who would you take right now, Mike Elko or Steve Sarkisian?
Well, I would take Mike Elko, and I'm high on Mike Elko. You guys know how I feel about him. I think Texas A&M did a very rare thing, which is they actually hired a coach based on intellect and not, because, he played the game and he's qualified to be a head coach. Or like back in the day, he played for the school, so he's automatically qualified to be the head coach at that school, which was the most common thing in the SEC until the 90s. But here's the problem with Texas A&M. Dave, how long can those? So for those who don't know, Texas and Texas A&M are different. Everybody talks oil money. The oil money is not Texas. The oil money is Texas A&M. Let's be very clear on that. That doesn't mean Texas probably doesn't have some oil boosters, but the oil money that you guys all think about, like Texas oil money, that is Texas A&M. Oil executives are, like, in general, I find billionaires mostly lucky more than smart, but in general, oil billionaires are the dumbest of the dumb. They think they're so smart because they drilled in somewhere and they struck some money. And like, this
is actually very true. And I know from experience.
Yes. And by the way, Tennessee was struggling for so long because they had the child of an oil executive, a petulant child of the oil executive being their top booster for 10 to 15 years. Okay.
But Jim Haslam, you would give credit for building it, Big Jim, right?
Jim Haslam knows that he was lucky and he doesn't think he's some sort of genius.
Okay, so you still think he was lucky, but he did build it. I mean, he helped build it.
He wrote the check and he's like, stay out of the way. I don't want to make the decisions. The Texas A&M oil executives, one, are dumb, but two, they think they're smart, so they want to have their hand in the program. That's why Texas A&M has so many issues all the time, because too many oil executives put their hands on it. Dave, you know this better than anybody. You're a Cowboy fan. They are run by an oil executive who thinks he's a genius.
Yes, that's pretty much accurate, and I've seen it before. So,
and that's the result you get with the Cowboys. That's why you have what you have for 25 years, is because the guy has a massive ego, and he didn't like that Jimmy Johnson got the credit for the Super Bowl teams. Now, you can tell me if Jimmy Johnson or Jerry Jones had more to do with that, because I do think Jerry Jones knows football, and he made the Charles Haley trade, didn't he? But I would say at the same time that
everything that occurred that led to the Super Bowl should be credited to Jimmy Johnson.
Everything. Okay, so and Jimmy Johnson is smart. Jimmy Johnson's smart. He's
exactly
okay.
And I've interviewed Jerry Jones, and I'm gonna reserve comment. But let's say that between him and Caleb, I would take Caleb in a game of chess. I'm just gonna say that
because Jerry Jones just struck big, and striking big in oil is like winning the lottery. If you meet someone who won the lottery, you don't think they're smart. You're like, oh, you won the lottery. Like, that's usually what striking it big in oil is. And that's who's running Texas A&M. And they all think they're geniuses. They all think they're geniuses because of the money they got. Texas actually has a lot of other wealthy businesses beyond oil. Businesses where people are smart. Oil's a lucky one. If you're rich in oil, you got lucky. Sorry.
Tracy says, nice having a team I dislike as much as Georgia. Great show. Thank you, Tracy. Be sure you've hit the like and subscribe button. We want you to be a part of it. Tyler says, Caleb, do you believe Elko will be one of, if not the greatest coach in college football? You do like Mike Elko, but that seems strong.
I love Mike Elko. I think he'll be a very hot commodity and very successful early, but I think I'm hesitant on how he can last long term, because again, I don't think he realizes as an Ivy League grad, the one thing he doesn't understand is what he's in for with Texas A&M. He's going to have to fight a lot of battles that you don't want to have to fight when you're at a program. And you know that, Dave. How many coaches have you covered at schools where they're good coaches, but they have to fight battles they didn't think they'd have to fight at that school?
A lot. And really, I don't think they're good coaches, but Derek Dooley, Butch Jones, and Jeremy Pruitt had to battle that. I mean, do we really know what they could have done at Tennessee? Not really, because the leadership was so poor at the top.
Derek Dooley had to fight battles. Butch Jones and Jeremy Pruitt had much more support than Derek Dooley had at the time. Remember, Derek Dooley was hired by Mike Hamilton, and then Dave Hart comes in, and you can say whatever you want, but Dave Hart was openly sabotaging and undercutting Derek Dooley during that time. It was really hard for Derek Dooley to do what he wanted to do. I mean, Dave Hart comes out. Yeah, Dave Hart comes out when Derek Dooley is in his second year and goes, "I'm not renewing staff contracts." Well, how the heck is Derek Dooley? I know I sound like a Dooley defender, but how is Derek Dooley supposed to do his job when your athletic director publicly says he won't renew your assistant contracts?
That makes it difficult. It makes it really difficult. But I would argue not that they were undermining them purposefully, but that the leadership as a whole at the university wasn't good for Pruitt or Jones. That just the leadership and the structure and all the things they've done to Neyland Stadium since they've had Danny White, all of those things didn't happen. So who knows? I don't think any of those coaches would have been championship coaches, but could they have won a game or two more here and there? Yes.
It's hard for me with Butch Jones. It's hard.
No, I agree.
Butch Jones was in a much. Butch Jones, I felt like did. Now I know Dave Hart did leave for John Curry, but like, and there were some. I
mean, let's be honest. It's a good day for Butch if he just, if he brushes his teeth, combs his hair, and gets to work.
Does he even comb his hair?
The $8 haircut.
And by the way, if there's sometimes there's bad leadership, and you're a terrible coach, and you can still be successful if there's enough talent. Ed Orgeron, LSU had bad leadership, and Ed Orgeron's running the program, and they still go win a national title.
Okay, well, I tried to have fun with that new YouTube function, but it didn't work at all. So I'm just going to replace it with a poll. What true freshman are you most excited to see this season after talking about Boo Carter earlier in the program? I got Mike Matthews, Boo Carter, Jordan Ross, and who else do you want me to put on there?
Peyton Lewis.
Yeah, he should be on there. I thought so. It is right there. I would argue that you should say Peyton Lewis. Maybe we'll discuss that here momentarily. Please support our
He's got a 5-star heart, as Cody
He's got
says.
a 5-star heart.
Peyton
That's right.
Lewis has a 5-star heart.
Be sure and support our. I couldn't believe he said it at the time he said it. I was like, that is going to get you roasted for decades. I mean, we will literally be saying that when we're in our 50s. We'll be saying, you remember that Butch Jones 5-star heart BS?
We don't want 5-star talent. We want 5-star hearts.
No, that's absolutely right.
And he thought he said something clever. That's the worst part.